Number two, let's talk about the students. The students, two main points you need to know. Facts you should know about children. Okay, something we should cover extensively. We have classes just on how the students learn, how children learn, children's psychology, child psychology. This is very important. But let's just have some brief points here. Number two, what students want. First, the facts you should know. You should know about children that they have something very important called peer pressure. Peers are their equals. So students, peers are their friends or their classmates. There's a very important emotional pressure that is always put on students, which is called peer pressure. So embarrassing the student in front of his or her classmates is deadly. Okay? You as an adult may not feel that embarrassed if somebody embarrasses you next to a colleague, even though you do. But children feel extra embarrassment. Think of yourself as children. When your parent, mother or father, used to punish you or shout at you or reprimand you in some way or the other in front of people in the store or in front of your friends or in front of her friends, how did you feel? Children feel really embarrassed. So peer pressure is very important. The way they feel towards their friends is very important. Jealousy is very, very important. So sometimes very smart and brilliant students don't want to work. They don't want to show that because they know that once they do, their friends will be jealous. They're not going to like them anymore. So this is something you need to put into consideration. And the other way around, those who don't achieve also feel some kind of peer pressure from their friends because they're weak, they're slow.
I think peer pressure is very good for discipline.
Excellent.
Because the other kids in the class, they
will help
peer pressure
you.
To, if they made the rules themselves, then they look at them.
Very good. So peer pressure actually has two sides. Okay, it's bad sometimes, but it's actually to your benefit some other times. When you use this peer pressure in order to have other people work or have more discipline, because you know that they really care about how their friends or how their classmates view them. This is very important to use to your advantage. Children have high emotional energy. All children have very high emotional energy. The peak is when they are teenagers. They react emotionally very, very, very strongly, much more than adults. So we need to keep this into perspective, that sometimes the reaction a student has may not seem very reasonable to you as an adult, but to him or her it is. Some students may actually be sad, very sad, because the team they love lost the match last night. Actually sad, actually heartbroken. Okay? You can't view this as something silly and they're just wasting time and grow up. This actually makes a lot of sense to them. Remember the example I gave a little while? He just forgot to save the game. And this really made him really sad, really mad. So try to look at it from their perspective and remember they have very high emotional energy. They overreact, especially teenagers. They overreact to a lot of things and we need to know this when we look at it. That's more important than anything. Yes. They have their priorities set up wrong. That's how we look at it as adults. But we need to know their priorities and deal with it, not put it in our sense. According to them, very good. According to us, it may be wrong. We have to know. We have to understand. Very good. Children do not want, they do not need, but they do not want also too much freedom. A lot of children want or say they want freedom. But in fact, at the end of the day, they don't want too much freedom. They can't deal with too much freedom.
They also need attention. Yes.
Very good. So they need attention. That's why sometimes they misbehave. And they sometimes say they want too much freedom, but they actually do not want that too much freedom. So you need to balance freedom and restraint. You need to have rules, you need to have guidance, but at the same time, give them some self-esteem. Make sure they have their say, they can voice their opinions, but do not give them too much freedom. Now, this is something we're going to talk about next time. One of the important techniques, and I know some of you have already done this during the break, the school is off from, projects. When you give students a project to do, sometimes we give them too much freedom, and this is usually a mess. We need to give them some freedom, but not too much freedom.
Even in the same project, you have to put the steps for them.
Exactly. Very good. Check. Very good. Children need to feel their worth. Remember how we said we need to make them feel important every day? feel that they are worth something. They need to feel valued. And again, sadly, a lot of kids do not feel this worth at home. So you need to complement this, or actually make for it at school. Give them their worth, give them, in one way or the other, the feeling of self-importance. This builds a relationship and fulfills their needs from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, their safety needs, and their belongingness and love needs. Number 2, what students want. Now, we had a little activity here that we were supposed to do, but because we're running out of time, we're just going to do it orally. What do you think students want from children? Try not to do this. Students want teachers who what? Who listen to them, understand them, funny, yes,
Energetic. Know the topic.
energetic,
Know the topic.
know the topic much better than them,
Be there for them.
help them, support them, be there for them. Lenient, not too strict, giving them some kind of freedom. Can listen, yes. Understand them, respect them, very good. So these are all things, and teach them. Yes, yes. You know what? They want teachers who teach them. Thank you. That is true. Well, most teachers think that the students don't want to learn. No, they want to learn, and they want a teacher who teaches them. And that's what happens when some teachers overdo being friendly to the teachers, to the students. Okay, by wasting a lot of class time talking about fun things, being funny. The students love them. They like them very much. But at the end of the day, they don't learn that much from you. They're just going to stop listening to you. Now, I have these points here. I hope you agree with most of them. Number 1, a teacher who enjoys teaching. This is very important. Students want a teacher who enjoys what he or she is doing. They want to feel this energy, like you said, this positive attitude. They don't want me to come bored and saying something that I don't believe in. They actually want to see me enjoying what I'm doing, loving my job, loving the subject I teach. Emphasize the material more than grades, and this is where a lot of us lose our students. When we talk about grades. If you don't do this, you're going to lose points. If you don't do that, you're going to lose points. You're going to fail on your exam, you won't be able to do the exam. You need this to graduate. How are you going to go to college if you can't pass the exam? That's not your job. Your job is to teach them math, English, science, art, Arabic. You're teaching them something. Okay? So if you're not stressing the material and actually teaching them, but all you care for is grades, you know what they want from you at the end of the day? They want a copy of the test with the answers.
Yes.
That's all they want.
Yes.
They want to go, write the right answers, get a good grade. Because all they care for now is grades, because that's what you taught them. So stress the material more than the grades. It's important that you learn. This is not coming on the test, but it's still important that you learn. Why? Give them the reasons. So it's not about the test only. It's about learning. Acts like an adult. A lot of times, we as teachers think that in order to build a positive relationship or a strong relationship with the students, we have to be more to their side. We need to be a little bit childish. We need to dress the way they dress. We need to talk the way they talk. We need to overdo our slang during the lesson in order to be close to them and use their mentality. They don't want that. You know why? Because they have lots of friends.
Yes,
They don't need you as an extra friend who looks like them talking. They have a lot of them. They need you to be an adult. Who builds a relationship with them? Very good. So understand them, relate to them, but you don't have to act like them. You still have to be a teacher, you still have to be them. They want a teacher who keeps promises, young and old. Once you break a promise with your students, you break the relationship. You must keep your promises. And promises are not only something that you promise, but it is the rules. And enforcing the rules is the consistency that we talked about last time. Thank you. You need to you need to live up to whatever you said, whatever you agreed upon with them. You need to keep your promises. If you don't keep your promise, you lose them right away. Admits when he or she is wrong. Again, they're very, very smart. And if you are mistaken in something and you try to circumvent, go around it, evade them, they know that. Okay? So if you're wrong, and if it's obvious that you're wrong, if they don't know you're wrong, don't waste time trying to admit being wrong. This will not benefit you. But if they realize you're wrong, quickly admit that you are wrong. First of all, you save the disrespect they'll have for you. And second of all, you are modeling to them how you expect them to behave once they are wrong. If you're wrong, you have to admit it, correct it, and that's it. Keeps everyone busy. Students who don't have something to do, who don't have anything to do in class, may appear to be happy. Teacher leaves me, he lets me play with my game, he lets me play with my phone, he lets me sleep, he doesn't even care, I'm very happy, I love this class because I can do whatever I want. But deep down inside, that's not the teacher they want. They want a teacher who gives them something to keep them busy the whole time. They want a teacher who gives them something to do the whole time, not just sit doing nothing or doing something that they would rather do. But again, they want a teacher who will keep them busy the
They
whole time.
shouldn't feel that the lesson is too long or it's boring. They should feel like it's like 10 minutes. It's fast and they didn't eat anything.
Perfect. If they have a lot of things to do, they're not going to feel that the lesson was boring. But if they don't have anything to do, it's going to be boring. A teacher who does not have favorites, once you show that you have a favorite student in class, that you like someone more than the other, that you treat someone better than the other, right away you lose a lot of the respect that you need from these kids. So make sure that you do not have favorites, and even if you do, you keep it to yourselves. You don't show the class that you have a favorite, because jealousy, again, remember, peer pressure, very important.
And they will learn to be biased themselves.
And they themselves will learn to be biased. Excellent. They'll have favorite teachers, they'll have favorite friends, they'll have favorites in everything, which is something you don't want to teach. Last thing, a teacher who respects students no matter what they do. There's a difference between good behavior and bad behavior. There's a difference between acceptable and unacceptable, but in all cases, I will always respect you as a person. Finally, the teacher. What are the things that the teacher does right or does wrong? Or what are the things that we can address as teachers? The teacher, we have mainly three things. The teacher should work from door to door. What does door to door mean? It means I should work once I enter the room and open the door until I close the door after me when leaving. I should not stop or pause for a minute, for a moment. I should work from door to door once I enter. Until I leave, I'm constantly doing something. Constantly working. Number two, use positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement, we're going to talk about in details now. Number three, what happens when the teacher is the problem, not the students? What can we do as teachers? Sometimes we are the cause for misbehavior, not actually the students. Let's talk about these points. Number one, work from door to door. View your class time minute by minute. Do not say, my class time is 40 minutes, or 90 minutes, an hour and a half, or 2 hours, or half an hour. Class time is minute by minute. When you plan your lesson, you should plan your lesson minute by minute. What am I going to do the first 10 minutes, then the next 10 minutes, then the next 10 minutes? What am I going to do the first 5 minutes, the next 5 minutes? Plan it minute by minute. Every single minute is important. Something we can do as teachers that sometimes helps is have this little form where you divide your lesson into 10-minute intervals. So let's say my class begins at 8, so from 8 to 8:10, then from 8:10 to 8:20, 8:20 to 8:30, 8:30 to 8:40, 8:40 to 8:50. And keep this with you. And try to note down when the misbehavior happens most. A lot of times you'll find that every class has its own misbehavior time. The first 10 minutes, the next 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes. When you pinpoint this time, and you know when this class usually misbehaves, when you're planning your lesson for this class, you should plan an extra activity or something that you put into consideration, some classroom management techniques, into this particular part of your lesson. So view your lesson as minutes, not as one whole.
What is the ideal time for this? Should be how many minutes?
It actually it depends on the age of the student, and it depends on the subject.
Let's say high school.
High school should be short. I don't approve of running lessons. Maybe one 40 or 45-minute lesson would be best for students. So yeah, one biology lesson every day is better than 2 or 3 running biology lessons.
Should be
twice a day.
45 minutes in.
Around that time.
What about
For
sound?
younger students, it should be more. It depends on the subject. If it's something that has
Lots of information.
a lot of information, something like biology where you're covering a lot of information, you're getting a lot of new terms, it shouldn't be that long. But if it's something like English or history, sometimes you need a longer lesson in order to be able to discuss.
Hey, like when I have a lesson and it's 1 hour and a half, how can I fill the 1 hour and a half?
You need to divide it into 2 lessons, not 1 lesson.
It's not.
No, I mean if you you know that your one lesson is an hour and a half. Do not plan for it as one lesson. Plan for it as two
I
lessons.
need the tolerance of the kids. It's not, I have plenty of work.
When you so you plan the lesson as two lessons, you have a distinct separation between the first lesson and the second. You have some kind of activity.
They must.
Not necessarily an activity. Yes, they must feel the difference, and they must feel the transition from this lesson to the other in a way that makes them want to take the second lesson. So you finish the first 40 minutes, you have their attention. Then you need to do some extra work in your lesson plan to give something extra exciting or extra
Application for the
for them
first lesson.
that makes them want to do the second lesson, and then you prepare for it second. The first 10 minutes set the stage. Essential. If you get the first 10 minutes of your lesson right, everything is easy afterwards. If you mess up during the first 10 minutes of your lesson, the rest of the lesson just is simply chaos. So the first 10 minutes are very, very important. You need to set the mood of the classroom during the first 10 lessons. You're excited, you're positive, you have a lot of work, you're ready. They don't have time to misbehave. They have this mood, they have this feeling. The rest of the lesson will probably continue the same way until the last 10 minutes. But if during the first 10 minutes, you tell them, I need you to be quiet for a minute, please, while I prepare my slides. Just a second, I just need to open PowerPoint, get everything ready, so just be quiet, please. Now I need to take attendance, okay? Now I'm gonna ask your names, raise your hands. If you do this, what happens is, every 2 or 3 students start talking together, start misbehaving to get everybody back. It's a mess for the rest of the class. But at the beginning, the 10 minutes are very organized, the rest of your lesson becomes very organized. The last 10 minutes should be dealt with very, very carefully. Why very carefully? 2 reasons. Number 1, the last 10 minutes should usually be a summary of what we learned. I should not introduce new information during the last 10 minutes of my lesson. Okay? So if we say a lesson is 40 minutes, I would probably say 10 minutes at the beginning, setting the pace, giving the introduction, maybe summarizing something before to relate to today's lesson, 20 minutes in the middle, the new information that they're learning, the last 10 minutes, applying and summarizing the new information. So the last 10 minutes should be a summary, an application of what they've learned. Don't give them new information, because the last 10 minutes, they tend to drift away. New information will probably be lost. Yes?
What about homework during this time?
It depends on your method of correcting homework. Do you take the homework and give it back to them the second day, or do you mark it on in the classroom?
No, I take it.
Okay, you have to make it in a way that it's very, very organized. You could have 2 shelves, for example, one called in and one called out, and the students should know this routine from the beginning of the year, that your homework should be put here at the end of the lesson. At the beginning of the lesson, you have to see whenever is suitable for you, in the in box here, without saying anything. If you don't have your homework, and you don't put it here, your homework is considered late, or not here. If you have an excuse, we're not going to talk about it in the lesson, you can talk about it with me during break time. So you have a routine, so we don't have people coming to you during the lesson, giving you their homework, explaining why they were late, explaining what was missing, and
No,
wasting
I
time.
mean these last 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes to give them the homework so that they can work on it, so you can help them if there's any difficult part.
But are they going to start doing homework in the class, you mean?
No,
Because some of it, because if they take it home, some of their parents can't help them with everything.
Okay. Now, what Mr. Talib is saying here is basically he's going to give them the homework during the last 10 minutes. Of course, yes, this is perfectly, this is the time to give homework, of course, during the last 10 minutes. But he's saying that he also guides them with the homework. This, in a sense, is a summary. If they open their books to this page, which is homework, and then you summarize what you're supposed to do, you explain to them the homework, this in itself is a summary. And it is an application. It's a
But
very
is
good
this homework supposed to be independent assessment rather than something that is guided? Because classwork is the guided assessment, but homework is supposed to be independent.
But it depends on the type of homework. Maybe it's a new method or a new type of question that you need to explain first. But if it's a repetition of something they already know, there's no sense of repeating it. Because once you repeat it, they will misbehave because they already know. But if it's something new, then maybe you should guide them in the beginning. It depends on the type of the assessment. Very carefully, we said first.
The best way to collect homework, because sometimes when we have a shelf, for instance, we'll give them an excuse. We'll be like, okay, we put it there, but someone took it. For instance, I had a fight with someone yesterday, maybe he did it, and so on. So what's the best way
I think the best way when you have a shelf, okay, is that you keep the shelf next to you. That's number one. Some people put the shelf at that end of the class and they're standing here. So that gives them an excuse. I put it there at the beginning of the lesson, now it's not there, somebody took it. So you keep it next to you, far away from their hands. And you take it with you once you leave the classroom.
Okay,
You don't leave until you take your homework.
So this during your lesson, you know?
Yes, during the lesson. If you want it during the break, okay, they can come to you during your break time. But they need to give it to you. If you leave any open space for them and tell them to put it there and you're going to collect it later on, you're definitely going to have people saying that it was there but it got lost, it's not my fault. Of course, if you hand in things by using the website or by using email or by using something like that, sometimes it's this way you're sure who handed it when, so there's no problem
They
here.
do have to excuse it even though I also email in the wrong way.
Yeah.
My internet connection was not working.
I'm not
I
passing.
don't have
Yeah,
a
but
printer.
it's-
As long as it's not working at home,
You said it's-
so when
no, no.
it works only when they come back.
You said-
Why not printers are built?
Okay, then maybe you can give them the choice, like we have. I'm giving you a choice of handing in your assignments by email or by handing it in here. So it's up to you. If you forget your password, then you need to print and bring it. If your printer isn't working, you need to write it by hand. If your hand isn't working, then you're going to lose more. You can't have all three on.
What about quizzes? I mean, if you have a quiz, the best time to start with is beginning of the lesson or the end of the lesson?
We have two types of quizzes, okay? We have a formative quiz and we have an application quiz. A formative quiz is something that gives you information of what they already know before you teach something new. This should be done at the beginning. So today I'm going to talk about addition of, we're going to talk about this next time. We're going to talk about addition of 3 digits and 3 digits. Okay, so 123 plus 234. I don't know how well they know how to add. So I make an assessment that has 10 questions of addition of only 1-digit numbers, 1 plus 5. And then the following 10 questions have addition of 2 numbers, 25 plus 34. And then 3 more questions on the thing that we're going to learn today, which is 3 numbers. This is formative. This gives you information. So before you explain, you know exactly who knows what. And maybe you should do this maybe the lesson before even so you can plan. Yes, or we have an application quiz which is at the end of the lesson during the last 10 minutes where they are supposed to solve something that has to do with your lesson today. And this is a good idea, to give them a quiz and collect homework yourself. Sometimes one of the best things to do is you tell them, I'm going to do a quiz now for 10 minutes, okay? My helpers, the ones who are talking together the whole time, the ones who are wandering, distribute the papers. Once you start with the quiz, you're going to do 2 things. First thing you're going to do, you're going to take your homework and you're going to put it on your desk. Second thing you do, you write your names. Ready? Start. And then while you're doing the quiz, you pass by each student and take the homework yourself and perhaps leave a small note. Thank you. Your homework looks very good. Oh wow, all this. That's very good handwriting. I love the cover. Thank you. I'll bring it to you tomorrow. And make sure that you have all the homework. Now, somebody doesn't have a homework, okay? He's going to start explaining. Now it's quiz time. You can come to me, break, and explain what happened. So this way you get the homework yourself. You don't let them hand in any homework, put it on a shelf, and you keep them busy doing something like a quiz in the last 10 minutes of your lesson.
So application quizzes, parents have it at the end of the lesson?
Yes, application has to be at the end. After you have given all the information, asked questions, done the classwork, you have to make sure they understand. Because if you do an application quiz a little bit early, what happens is the ones who are smart and fast, they do really well. But the ones who are slow, it's not that they don't understand, they just didn't have enough time to grasp the information. So I need to give them all the information, have some practice questions, maybe do some worksheets, make sure they understand everything. And then the last thing is the quiz, once you know they
Once
understand.
it's recording the lesson that we've dealt with like the week before or something. Like if it's like this quiz is regarding a lesson that we've dealt with already.
Then you can do it in the middle of the lesson. The first 10 minutes of the lesson, you'll do a summary of what we did before. So make sure that, again, they understand everything, and then you give them the quiz here. Okay, and again, while giving them the quiz, that's always the best time to collect their homework. And maybe you can just make a class routine with them. They all know that whenever we're doing the quiz, whether it's the beginning of the lesson, the middle of the lesson, or the end of the lesson, that's when you put your homework next to you and I'm going to come and collect it. Whenever that is. And no exceptions. And if you have any issues with homework, we're not going to talk about it now, we'll talk about it after the lesson. Use positive reinforcement. Very briefly, we're going to finish this, and then whoever wants to stay for the video can stay, whoever wants to leave. Use positive reinforcement. Praise students often. Remember, stress on the good behavior as much as you can, but be sincere, okay? Don't act. They will know that you're acting. Be sincere, be truthful. And don't overdo it. Don't, you know grandmothers? Don't be grandmothers. What does that mean? Parents love their children, and grandmothers love their children. But if a grandmother sees her grandchild raise his hand, for example, wow, you have excellent hand-raising techniques. That's not it, okay? So when you praise them too much, when you overdo the praise, you lose the sense of the praise. Yeah, and she's always going to praise you, whatever I do, so it doesn't matter. So praise really good work, be sincere and truthful, and don't overdo it. Separate the behavior from the child. This is very important. Make sure that all students know that you respect them as people. You love them as people. You care for them as people. You'd love to be their friend. You can talk to them anytime, even after they've messed up your lesson and got detention and lost everything, and you punish them and you send to the administrators. If after half an hour you want to talk about something, I'm here to talk with you. I'm a very good person. We have a strong relationship. We're friends. Separate the behavior from the child. I don't like your behavior, but I like you as a person. The more specific the praise, the better. Do not praise generally. Praise specifically. Okay? If you tell someone, good work on your homework, good work on your homework, good work on your homework, they know that you're saying it to everybody. You probably didn't even see the homework. But good work on your homework. The second point you wrote about how you worked with the group in your class in your chemistry lesson is great. I love that very much. Second one, I love the story you put about your dog. It's great. Third one, problem number 2 is very hard. I really like that you did it this way. Be specific. They appreciate it very much. The more personal the praise, the better. And this is something we do a lot of times as teachers just to feel that we praise. We praise the class. You're the best class. Best grade 6 in the school. The students who are really good know that they are responsible for this space. And the students who are weak know that it's the other students who are responsible for this class being the best. So be specific with your praise and be personal. Okay? You should praise every child for what he or she has done in each one's own level. But praising the whole class all the time, you just lose the meaning of the praise. Communicate your praise to parents. Parents are usually hostile to teachers and to any people who tell them negative things about their children and who try to blame them for something bad that their child has done. And that's why there's sometimes this relationship between teachers and parents where the parents don't really appreciate it. But if we take the initiative to praise the students and tell the parents, to call them on the phone, just to tell them something very simple, like John's homework today was excellent. It's the best time he ever handled in homework. I really must congratulate you, he's done a great job. Or, I saw him today helping one of his friends and during a break because his friend couldn't read, so I was helping him read. That's very, very good. He's a beautiful child. You're very lucky to be his mother. Thank you very much for having him in my class. Giving this praise and communicating to the parents gives a very positive relationship between the parents and the children. Okay, it's not all parents, of course, but most of them. Okay, finally, when the teacher is the problem, how can we contribute as teachers to misbehavior? We usually contribute to misbehavior by refusing or failing to explain why students are learning the lesson. A lot of students ask why we're learning this, especially in things like math. Why am I learning the order of operations? Why do I learn calculus? What am I going to do with differentiation integration? Why? What am I going to do with it? And we don't have the answers. Okay? Sometimes you say addition and subtraction, yeah, because when you buy something, you need to know how to add the money. But if it's more complicated, why, Ms. Daddy, are you teaching me about the Civil War? What do I care about the Civil War? Okay, so we need to have answers. We need to have answers. Exactly. So there are some questions that you need to know how to answer. If you don't have a proper answer, promise an answer. And go find your own answer. You need to know why you're teaching something, and you need to explain to the students why they need to learn this. Why are they learning this?
What are they going to do with chicks?
I have to have it.
What?
I have to have it.
Even the parents, but
Yes.
what?
But I have to have an answer as a teacher.
Why are you teaching them?
You need to know that this one age.
What?
Why do you need to know it?
Why?
Because it makes something. Because it makes them have better taste and it makes them not this year's the book, read it. Give them some. Okay, sorry for keeping you. Showing lack of confidence. If the students feel that you're not confident, they misbehave.
They
Eat you alive.
They eat you alive. They eat you alive. If they feel that you are not confident, they will eat you alive. I have nothing more to say. Being unclear in their expectations. If the teacher is unclear with the expectations, again, a lot of misbehavior happens. If the students don't understand what they're supposed to do, why they're supposed to do it, when they're supposed to finish it, they misbehave. And then you are the problem. You are the cause of this problem. You need to be clear. Having unclear limits for misbehavior is very important. My limits have to be very clear and very consistent. Because if they're not, they will play a game with you, which is called test the limits of my teacher. Okay? I'm going to argue, misbehave until he snaps and yells and shouts it. So that's what happens. Now I know his limits. Okay? Don't make them test you. Give them the limit. And once they reach the limit, right away act. Respect, hands off. Okay? Hands up, hands off. I can't hit my friend. I'm going to try. He punches his friend. You ignore that. Okay? So maybe if I punch him hard, yeah, so he tries again. Well, maybe if I grab him by the hair. No. You punch him, you touch him, right away. Detention, whatever you have, time out, take away marks, even though I don't approve of taking away grades because of misbehavior. Any way of punishing the student, right away. This shows your limits very clear.
Don't you have contact marks? Do we have contact marks? I mean, you don't agree with me?
Yes, because you only have a certain number of grades for misbehavior. I have 10 grades for the whole quarter. And today, just because what you said, you lost 2 grades out of 10. After a little while, you did something, okay, you lost 5. By the end of the lesson, you lost 10. So the rest of the quarter, you can do whatever you want. You lost 10. So it doesn't make sense.
We should have let them know.
You shouldn't tell them about that. It's obvious that they can only do so much. With my daughter, we had a chart where we give her stars she's 6 years old. So she gets 6 different things that she must do during the day. Study, being with family, okay, 6 things. Yes, 6 things. And after taking the 6 things with 6 stars, you can read a new book, you can watch TV, you can do this. We trade this in. Yes, let's not get into this now. Anyways, sometimes when we were still developing this, she reached a point where she thought, okay, I lost my food star today, and I lost my family star today, and we still have like 6 hours left in the day. Okay, I don't want my stars today. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to do my homework. I'm just lost 4 more stars. I'm not going to work. I already lost 2 stars. I don't want to work. That's not what we want. So rewarding behavior with grades makes them reach a point where they don't care anymore. So behavior has to be right because it has to be right, not because I'm going to give you grades for it. Last thing, solving immediate discipline problems. Now, what happens is sometimes we solve the problem immediately, right now, to get it over with, without solving the underlying causes. Be quiet, stand up, go outside, stop talking without knowing why they're talking, why they're misbehaving, without trying to solve the root of the problem. So when we try to only solve immediate problems right away, quick fixes, like I said at the beginning, you still have recurring misbehavior problems. But if you look at the core of the mistake, that's when you get things right. Not demanding the students' full attention. If I am explaining now, and I see 1 or 2 students at the end of the class playing with their phones, whispering, writing notes to each other, and I ignore that, they know afterwards that I don't care if they give me their attention or not. Their friends know the same thing, and after a while, I lose the attention of the whole class. So having full attention of the class is something that I must insist on. I will not work. If you're not paying attention, then you have to go to a timeout, to detention, to some kind of punishment. You can't sit here not paying attention. Since you're here, you have to pay full attention.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
If that's not allowed at our school, so what do you do then?
What is not allowed?
Not staying in the class, you can't do anything. There's no place to send them, there's no nothing. I asked them about this, but you can't do anything.
A lot of schools have this because they don't have the proper staff enforcement of having students outside of the classroom. It creates a mess outside. However, there's something we talked about maybe perhaps the second session, which is basically you can have these students go to a timeout in another class. Like if you, Mr. Tully, tell your administrator, I have arranged with Ms. Diana that students in my class who misbehave will be sent to her class for their timeout, exactly, for lower grades, for example, and vice versa. Students from her class, we arrange this together. Do you approve? Yes.
Yeah, I had to take it my lesson. Can we come on it again?
Are they the same grade?
No, we're drinking. I have racism, and they will. Can we come again?
Okay, but 8 and 7 are very close. I would punish second or third grader.
I experienced this with 9 and 5, grade 9, and then they came to grade 5.
Yes.
This was a punishment.
Humility. Okay? They will feel humiliated when you put them so lower grade. It's really punishment for them. So arrange this one more thing. I don't approve though of the library. Somebody said library. Send them to library. Again, library is like giving them punishment. No, it's like giving them punishment to write an essay. They're going to hate writing. If you give them punishment to go to library, they're going to hate reading. A library should be something fun. Being inconsistent in enforcing rules, you have to be fair. You have to be consistent in enforcing the rules. You can't enforce it once and not enforce it again. Okay, 1 more minute. Last thing. Promise. Extra tips. Ignore the offender. Now this seems to be the opposite of everything we do. Sometimes ignoring the person who misbehaves is the best option. Okay? Ignore the offender. The misbehavior was quick and unnoticeable. Why do I address this behavior? First of all, because it disrupts my classroom. Second of all, because the other students are going to get, it's contagious. So if it was really quick, didn't disrupt the classroom. If nobody else really noticed it, just make yourself, just ignore it. But don't try to address it weakly. If you address it, you have to address it firmly. If you ignore it, he's going to think he didn't see it. If he repeats it, then you have to enforce. Second, send non-verbal messages. A lot of times, students misbehave, and either these students, the misbehaving students, or other students in your classroom want to continue the misbehavior to waste time. So one of the best ways to address misbehavior is by sending non-verbal messages. Non-verbal messages, number 1, eye contact, looking them in the eye. Number 2, voice raising, lowering, changing your tone of voice. Posture, the way you stand, standing like this, or standing like this. Okay? The way you stand actually makes a difference. Proximity, how close you are to the offender. So I saw this person right here doing some kind of misbehavior. I'm going on with my lesson, but when I come right here, I raise the tone of my voice with whatever I'm explaining, and I stand like this near the person who misbehaved, and then I just quietly go away, and perhaps eye contact, and then this will solve a lot of minor problems. Use behavior cards. What are behavior cards? We don't have that much time for demonstration, however, little cards like this. And the card should read something like, your behavior is unacceptable. You must respect your colleagues and your teacher. Return this card to me in person after the lesson. And while you're walking, you have them in your hand. Somebody's misbehaving. All you do is just you drop the card on their desk and you just continue with your lesson. But remember, the last part here, you have to return it to me personally. So I know that once I get the behavior card, I have to go, I have to listen to the lecture, I have to perhaps be punished, so I will avoid the behavior. Use a chat away from the other students. Have a chat. Talk with the students, okay, but again, away from other students. Either with a low voice if they're far away, or take them away or her away from the class. Last thing, this is one of the things you should do when the behavior really gets tough. And sometimes you'll be surprised. It works with younger students more than older students. Sign a contract. What's a contract? Your behavior is unacceptable. I've tried once, I've tried twice. Okay, I need to meet you before school, after school, during break. I'm going to sit down. Now we're going to have a contract. And this is the contract. It's ready to meet you. The contract says that if you're respectful, you respect everybody else, I will not punish you. I will never disrespect you. I will do this and this. Start with yourself. In return, you must respect me. You can't talk during the lesson. You need to raise your hand. You can't do this. You can't do that. If you fail to do any of the following, number 1, I will punish you once. Number 2, I will call your parents. Number 3, have to lose this class, you'll have to get expelled, some kind of contract. Okay? Sign the contract with older students. Older students will give you their word of honor by signing, and a lot of them will actually live up to it. Younger students may need the presence of a parent in order to understand this. I'm telling you in front of your parent that this is what I'm going to do. I'm very clear. It's all written here. They don't know how to read. Just point the points to them, okay, and then have them sign. Even if they're younger students, they really feel important by scribbling their name here. See, you wrote this. It's an agreement. You can't break your promise. This is a promise between both of us. This is another thing that you can use